All right, welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here joining you on JAKIB Sports. And I'm always pleased to welcome this gentleman on. That would be a 14-year NFL veteran with the Philadelphia Eagles, New Orleans Saints, and the then Oakland Raiders before they moved to Vegas. And that's Eagles great Eric Allen. Eric, thanks very much for joining me.
Hey, Pat, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. You know, duty calls. The son is getting changed from receiver to cornerback, and he's going to play this Saturday. He's out here in California at the University of Laverne, so I had to drive up and hopefully help him out, and so he can make some plays on Saturday.
Well, I mean, Eric, if he needs guidance playing cornerback, I imagine his lineage is going to come in pretty handy here in the next 48 hours. So, I mean, I guess, how does he feel about it, going from receiver to corner?
He's excited. He's a smaller guy, so they're going to probably put him in the slot, and that's kind of where he was offensively. So I just been talking to him the last day or so about, you know, when you're in the slot, you know, what do you like to take advantage of from a receiver? Where do you line up? Do you line up, you know, a little bit wider when you run an inside route? So those are all the things that have to happen pre-snap for you to kind of get an advantage. And I think it's going to do I think he's going to do really well because of the changeover, and he understands route concepts. And that's one of the difficult things about playing corner is you don't really understand the route concepts and what the offense is trying to do to you and attack you. But he's going to have a really good sense of that when he plays on Saturday.
Well, if he bites on something, go easy on him, Eric. Now, okay. Don't expect him to, you know, to grab it all week one, but you can also Eric Allen doesn't need much introduction, but longtime analyst for ESPN and the Pac-12 networks, and you can also find him now as an analyst for the Raiders on Silver and Black Production. So you have watched, not only played, but you have watched a ton of cornerback play. So let me just hit you with this. The Eagles lose to Tampa last week, Eric, and their corners are 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. And Baker Mayfield's getting the ball out in less than 2 seconds because no one is covering Mike Evans or Chris Godwin for the first 10 yards. What is the theory behind playing that soft in the NFL?
Well, you're trying to manufacture pressure any way you can. Baker's been really hot early in the season, and he's been kind of taking those easy throws early in the game, and he gets that confidence. And then later in the game, man, he's like a gunslinger out there. So I always thought it was best to not give those early completions up early. Make him have to fit those throws into tight windows, and particularly with bigger receivers. When you have bigger receivers, you're able to get up on them a little bit and not totally crowd the line of scrimmage, but just give 1 or 2 yards. So It's like, you know, a fly at a picnic. You know, when you're just kind of trying to flap that guy away, that's kind of where you want to be with bigger receivers, particularly early in the game. So Baker has to feel like, man, that's a tight window right there. I'm really going to have to thread it through, or should I just drop it down to the back who's flaring out of the backfield? What I saw last week against the Eagles is just really early on playing off, trying to disguise maybe cover 3 or cover 1, but you really have to, particularly with the hot quarterback like Baker was, you really have to get up and challenge those receivers. And even if it's a zone type of situation, you can get up to about 3 or 4 yards and then bail. Just give him a mental picture of where you are as a cornerback.
Yeah, because neither Evans nor Godwin are known for their speed, Eric. It's not like they blow past these corners. And don't almost all NFL teams now play the 2 high safeties. And if you're playing that 2 high safety look, doesn't that allow you maybe to get your corners closer to the line of scrimmage because those 2 guys are sitting back 15, 20 yards from the line of scrimmage?
Well, normally if the 2 high is translated into cover 2, but just because it's 2 high, that doesn't necessarily mean they're playing cover 2. A lot of teams start off with the 2 high look, but they're playing what we call a 4, cover 4 or cover 8, which basically means the outside cornerbacks, if the receiver is wide enough, you basically have him man-to-man on any route that's deeper than 10 yards. So when a quarterback looks at the secondary and he sees those 2 high safeties, if he's not like a mature, educated quarterback, he can think, oh, it's cover 2, so the seam's going to be open. But in actuality, the team is playing a cover 4, a cover 8, some kind of combination coverage. But when you're in that situation, it's a lot easier for your corners to play press. And then if they do have quarters or deep third, again, you can go back to the bail. So it's really all about that initial picture that you're trying to give the quarterback. I used to love to kind of hang around that 5-yard mark as a quarterback is going through his cadence. So he's looking at me and I'm looking at him, and he's kind of like, okay, what are you doing? I said, I have enough time in the world. You're not under center. You haven't got the ball yet. I have all the time in the world to kind of hang out and just show you this muddle picture. And then as he gets down to his cadence, I'll either, go up and press, or I'll stay there and bail.
Talking with former Eagles great and NFL great Eric Allen, I'm sure you're aware today is the 31-year anniversary of your 94-yard pick 6 against the Jets. Did you remember that?
Well, this morning I got a great text about 6 o'clock West Coast time with the whole Pat Summerall, John Madden call.
Right.
It was it really brought back memories. And it was the first time I saw them talk about the sunset. And as the sun was going down over the Meadowlands, they were talking about, what a great sunset it was. And, Boomer, play action, he dips down and throws the ball. So, yeah, I've watched it today about 8 times.
It was a hell of a return, Then you handed the ball to Randall Cunningham. He got hurt in that game, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the second time we were in that situation where we started out as, one of the favorites in the division, and Randall got hurt. The first time it was Green Bay. We were in Green Bay. I believe it was 91 or 90.
Game. Yep.
Opening game. Yeah. Bryce Pop, the defensive end, outside linebacker, kind of came low and just really ruined our season, so to speak, because we ended up that year finishing number 1 overall in defense in every category. But offensively, we really struggled without the great ultimate weapon in Randall Cunningham.
I'm going to come back to that then, because I want to ask you in a couple minutes some psychology about that, like locker room type question. But I wanted to circle back, though, to one thing you had mentioned earlier about these big receivers. From your history as one of the great corners in NFL history, who's tougher to cover? Is it a Mike Evans type, an A.J. Brown type, or is it a Tyreek Hill type?
The smaller guys always were a challenge with me. The bigger guys, if you get a good week of preparation and study, like, for instance, Terrell Owens, an amazing, strong, athletic, big-time football player, but he's not going to run a lot of in and out quick routes. His routes are going to be downfield, 10, 12-yard out routes, 15-yard inside breaking routes. When he does run slant routes, they're going to have to clear the area out for him. So there's not going to be much receivers on his side, and he's going to line up a little wider. And it just takes some time for those big guys to get going. So sometimes I would play really tight and what we call quick jam them and then bounce back. So they see this hands in their face, and so they're going to react. But I was fast enough to be able to cut them off and stride, things like that. Man, those small guys, Joey Galloway, was a 4'140" guy. He gave me incredibly difficult situations. One receiver that no one really ever gives a lot of respect to, and there were a couple of them at Washington when we were playing, was Ricky Sanders was another one. They can line him up in a slot. He can kind of basketball you and go in and out. Gary Clark, oh man, he run such great option routes. And with Coach Joe Gibbs, he would do such a great job of giving them opportunities to option off of my strength.
Then you had a great possession receiver in Art Monk. That was a
Hall of Fame
trio of receivers. Yeah. I remember those battles. You're not kidding. Now, Eric, I want to circle back to what you did say a couple minutes ago, because earlier in this show, I was talking about the fact that certain teams, to me, Eric, enter the NFL season having already thrown in the towel because they haven't invested in the quarterback position. I'm talking about, for instance, and I know you might be a little circumspect here in your opinion, but the Raiders, to go into a season with Gardner Minshew, no way. Deshaun Watson is dragging the Browns down. The New York Giants invested in Daniel Jones. My question to you is, the stars, the really good defensive players, I mean, week to week, how hard is it for the defensive side to say, come on, let's go give 110% on every play, knowing that you don't have the guns to win on offense?
Yeah, really, really difficult. And you try and make sense of it by saying, okay, who is surrounding the quarterback? All right, do we have enough personnel, receiver wise, offensive line wise, running game wise, to shield the quarterback until he gets into a situation to where he's at his strength? For instance, we know Gardner is a creative, outside the pocket, play breaks down, he can make some plays happen. But we have to put our team in a situation with our defense to be able to still be close in the game. And, defensively, just a lot of pressure on you, just like that 91 season, to play at your level best each and every week. Right. And not only that, but turnovers. You got to get turnovers to give your offense opportunities with the short field. So you're taking a possession away from the opposing offense and then hopefully giving your team an opportunity to have a short field and score. Or, in my case, I'm thinking about taking it to the house. I'm thinking about not only am I catching it, but I'm taking it to the house to try and help our offense. But yes, it is really stressful on a guy like Max Crosby, who is one of the best defensive players in the league, to play at his level best every single week in order to give our team, who doesn't have the franchise type quarterback at this moment, to be able to win each and every week.
Right. And it's got to be debilitating too, I guess, Eric, a veteran player, say for instance on the Raiders, who's now, could watch Davante Adams get traded, because you just know then that the Raiders are no longer investing in the current year. They're investing in a future year. And it's got to be tough to overcome that psychologically too, right?
Hey, Pat, man, that's a great insight right there. And if, obviously, if you play this game long enough, you're going to hopefully put yourselves in all kinds of situations. I was in this situation at the end of my run in Philadelphia, where I just didn't think the team was at a point where they were going to challenge for, a Super Bowl.
Right.
So I go to New Orleans, and it was the same situation there pretty much. It was kind of a rebuilding.
Right.
And you, at the end of your career, you want to be in meaningful football games in November and December. That's what Buddy used to always talk about. Right. Hey, you know what? We can play consistent, but when November and December hits, you got to be playing some good football, and your team needs to be one of those teams that people are believing that is a playoff Super Bowl caliber team. And so for Davante, I understand where he is right now. I don't think it's about not liking the Raiders. He bought a house in Las Vegas. He's going to live in Las Vegas. Right. Him and Antonio have a really good relationship. Right. He was a Raider fan growing up when he was young.
Right.
But your last 3 or 4 years, you wouldn't be in those games where, you get the touchdown or the interception to seal the victory. And, you're hosting up a divisional championship and a conference championship. And I understand why Davante is extremely great player, Hall of Famer, but he definitely needs to be in situations where he can help team get to the championship.
All right. Eric, Allen, the last question I have for you is of a similar ilk, and it deals with a situation here in Philadelphia. And one that just is my opinion, which is I'm not sure there's much conversation going on between head coach Nick Sirianni and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. I think Fangio is an old school guy. I think he's set in his ways, and I'm not sure that that's going to work. Now, my question to you is, as a veteran player, you've been in hundreds of locker rooms.
Yeah.
Do players sense that if a rift is forming between a coach and a coordinator?
Without a doubt. They're the first folks to understand and know that the relationship is not great. And it has to be great, particularly when you're the Eagles and you're a perennial playoff team. You brought in a incredible legendary defensive coordinator to get a defense back to where it was 2 years ago. And if things are not working correctly and the talent on the field is feeling like, being pulled in different ways, either system wise, either what their responsibility is, it does create situations in the locker room that are very uncomfortable. If you have a player who's trying to continue to play at a very high level and he's asked to, hey, you know what, on these certain situations, you need to play off in order for the defense to maximize what we're calling, but that's not his strength. And you don't feel comfortable enough going to him and say, hey, I understand where you are, but for me to get going, hey, maybe I need to challenge this receiver, or I don't want to follow the guy from left to right. I'm greater on the left side. So all those little things start to pop up when the relationship is not great. But I'll say this. Every year as a player, you're evaluated. And that evaluation going into the offseason is to make you a better player. You have to develop. If your coaching staff is not developing players and you're just getting what you got, that's not good for the player either. That's right. And you're not going to be able to turn around and bounce back after a tough playoff loss because you're not going to develop better. And it's up to the players and, more importantly, the coaching staff to develop its players year in and year out so they can get better at their craft. And I just don't see that right now on the defensive side of the ball with the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, Eric, I really appreciate the effort you made to come on the show tonight. And I want you to know you cleared the first hurdle. I'm sure there's going to be some intense lobbying here to finally get you the gold jacket that you deserve. Look forward to that, and I look forward to having you back on later this year. And I'm looking forward to a Noah pick six this weekend. All right. But thanks very much for taking the time to join us.
Anytime. Take care, my man. Thank you for everything.
All right. Eric Allen joining us here. Thanks very much, Eric. And all right, that'll do it for an edition of This Week in Pro Football. Like I said, good schedule for Week 5. Be some good games. Sunday night game, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Monday night. The Saints are in Kansas City. I think the Chiefs should handle that because I don't believe in Derek Carr at all. But we'll see. The Chiefs and check out Sao Paulo this weekend on the Matchup Show on ESPN for more on the Chiefs. All right. Thanks very much to Xander Krause for producing. Thank to all of you for watching tonight. And look forward to bringing some more football talk to you on a Week 6 edition next week of This Week in Pro Football.